I'd like to call this meeting of the Texarkana, Arkansas Board of Directors to order. At this time, Heather, would you call the roll, please?
Director Hollibush.
Here.
Director Odom.
Here.
Director Minor.
Here.
Director Peavy.
Here.
Assistant Mayor Teeters.
Here.
Director Harris.
Here.
Mayor Brown.
Here. At this time, too, if you wish to speak during the citizens' communication time, there's cards on the ledge. You're invited to fill one of those out. It's not necessary, but if you wish to, you can get that to our city clerk. You'll be permitted to speak during the citizens' communication time. If you have your cell phones on, if you'll silent those for us as we proceed through our meeting. So at this time, we'll stand and have our invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance given by Director Barbara Minor.
Lord, we just know that within you there is hope, there is love, there's generosity, and we know that you will give us knowledge about different issues and even about our own homes and neighborhoods. Just give us the knowledge and wisdom to work things in the best way that should be. Lord, I thank you for this board and the fact that all of us can meet together like this, that we have the freedoms like that. Just bless each of our employees, each of them, and every endeavor, every day. Keep everyone safe. We just thank you so much because you are our Lord and Savior. And in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. At this time, we'll have a presentation of by the city for our employees, City Service Employee Awards. So at this time, I would like to have the following people come forward if you're present. I believe it's Daniel Fields, Nathan Reeves, Kenneth Wilson, William Smith Jr. All these guys work for the fire department. Daniel has 5 years, Nathan 15 years, Kenneth Wilson 20 years, William Smith 20 years, and then we have Amy Payne and Roderick Howard with TWU for 15 years. So. Daniel will do your first.
That's cool.
Congratulations. I have a certificate for you for your 5 years.
Let me get a picture of that. Would you like to put it up?
Congratulations to you.
He has 20 years. All right.
20 years.
These other guys are not here, so we'll have these for them in the city clerk's office with their pens, and we certainly appreciate their years of service to the city. And next on the agenda, we have a presentation by the Texarkana, Arkansas Police Department and officer recognition for Richard Completon and Dylan McCrary. Chief Harrison, are you here? Chief Harrison, come forward.
Mayor and members of the board. On Thursday, December the 13th, 2018, recruit officers Dylan McQuarrie and Richard Conklin left the police academy in Camden to return to Texarkana to participate in the Cops and Kids Night benefiting Baptist Orphanage and Water Springs Ranch. On Friday, December the 14th, these two officers left early to return to the police academy in Camden. It was their graduation day. Both were already dressed in their Class A uniforms, ready for graduation as soon as they arrived at the academy. Also on his way to graduation was Sergeant Rick Cockrell, who was to participate in the Academy Graduation Honor Guard. Sergeant Cockrell was traveling a few minutes behind Officer McQuarrie and Conklin. They had no idea that Sergeant Cockrell was behind them. Sergeant Cockrell will now relate to you what he saw as he approached these two officers on the highway before they got to Camden. Sergeant?
Chief Harrison, it's great to have you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. On that morning, it was approximately about 4:30 in the morning, and it was a very heavy rain that day. Raining hard enough that cars on I-30 were having to travel at about 40, 50 miles an hour to get to where they needed to go. We were going down an old country road that was very winding, and on my way, I was thinking to myself that I'm going to be late because I had to slow down my travel so much. As I was turning the curve to come into one of the tight curves going up towards Camden, I see a white truck pulled off into the ditch with its flashers on, and it's pouring down rain, and the only thing I can think is, oh my goodness, what has this guy done? Well, as I continue to drive, I see someone come running out of the ditch. I can't see who it is because of the lights, but the way that they were waving their hands frantically, I knew that something bad had happened. It wasn't just a regular truck pulled over or stood off the side of the road. Something bad had happened. As I'm pulling off to the side of the road, I'm thinking to myself, I'm in my honor guard uniform. I am shined up, and I have nothing to change into. So I'm just thinking, oh my goodness. Well, as I open my door and I stick my head out and I yell out, is everybody okay? I hear, Officer Rick, is that you? And I'm thinking, where on this country road would somebody know who I am an hour and a half away? I can't see who it is because the lights are so bright from their truck, but as I walk forward, Officer McQuarrie comes stepping towards me, and he's covered from his chest down in mud. I couldn't think to ask him, are you okay? The only thing I thought to come out of my mind was, what did you do? Two recruits getting ready to graduate, what did you do? And he tells me, no, it's not me. We had to help her. And he points down into a culvert. Now, this culvert's brand new. It was about 6.5, 7 foot deep. And what I didn't see was there was a purple Dodge Charger turned completely backwards and upside down with the hood facing into the culvert. Now, at any given time, you're thinking, okay, that's a pretty bad accident. But because it was raining so hard, there was so much mud and rushing water coming through that culvert, there was mud and water over the door, over the hood, into the driver's door. And this young officer here was helping a young lady out of her car and up through the muddy ditch. These two officers were able to see this car that I couldn't see. They had the forethought to go and to help this woman, and when they had no cell service to call for medical attention because she said her back and her shoulder was injured, they had the forethought to send one down the road until they got cell service, call 911, and come back and render aid. For being recruit officers, this is a great thing because they already have the mindset in their mind to help people, and they have that serving heart. So we wanted just to recognize everything that they did because they went above and beyond to help this young woman.
Mayor, would you and the city manager come down and present their life-saving awards to
Officer, you're recognized today for your integrity, your compassion, and professionalism with dignity and honor for your quick response in saving the lives of a drowning woman in a flooded car on December the 14th of 2018. Congratulations. And officer, you are recognized for your integrity, your compassion and professionalism with dignity and honor, for your quick responses, saving the life of a drowning woman in a flooded car on December the 14th, 2018. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Officer Rick, did they make it to graduation?
Yes, ma'am, they were able to make it to graduation another
Little buddy?
That, well, they were able to strip down all their clothes and sit in the hallway just in the underwear to get them washed. Got them dry and got them back on just in time for graduation.
Thank you, guys.
Way to go. Oh, goodness. Hope they come along.
All right, moving right along, we'll get to the consent agenda. We have two items on the consent agenda. One, item number 3 is the approval of the minutes of the rescheduled regular meeting on February the 19th, 2019. Item number 4 is to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase a tandem roller for the Public Works Department Streets Division. At this time, do I hear a motion to approve of the consent agenda?
I make a motion.
I have Director Harris would like to remove item 4. So at this time, we would remove item 4 from the consent agenda. So we'll only be voting on the consent agenda item number 3, which is the approval of the minutes. So do I have a motion to approve of the consent agenda item of the approval of the minutes?
Motion to approve the consent items.
Have a motion by Director Teeter, second by Director Holder to approve of the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So at this time, having removed item number 4 from the consent agenda, Director Harris, would you like to address the board pertaining to the authorization for the roller for the Public
Yes,
Works?
I was going to ask the Public Works Director, but I guess I don't see him here, about the size of this unit here. Was it a big one or was it a small one? And I don't want to say how, I don't want to really say, well, I put it like this, I just seen one on the back of a vehicle when the city been doing potholes, and it was kind of small one. And the reason why I'm saying that, because I know lately, when I've been turning in issue for potholes, I've been basically giving the same area, and I thought maybe if the city can get a small one of these and roll over the potholes when they repair, because I don't think they is currently doing that. But I know another place is doing it, but I don't really want to say where, but because I know we all the time being comparing to what another city is doing. But and that's why I was trying to bring this out.
I was just looking at my computer's not on. I apologize to you. I didn't print that part of the packet. But the one that they are proposing is the, I think it's that 504.
Pass that down, Trevor. Pass it down. Pass that down.
I know at one time they had one rented because ours was non-operating.
This one is,
That is correct.
Oh,
this one is 6,500 pounds, 80 inches wheelbase, 105 inches in length. The minimum compact width is 4 foot, so it's 4 foot wide, and it comes with the warranty and everything. So this looks like on those pictures. It looks like on those pictures, Director Harris, it looks like the larger one to me, the TW504.
That's exactly what it is.
Well, I would see if maybe city sometime can invest in a small one if they could somewhere down the lane. So that's all what this was about. It wasn't just bring up that issue.
Okay, is there any other discussion pertaining to the consent agenda, item number 4, which is adopting a resolution authorizing city manager to purchase a tandem roller for the Public Works Department. It's $45,420. The source, it met all the bidding requirements, and the funds are budgeted and available for purchase of this vehicle for the city's capital outlay fund. That's where the funds will be coming from.
I make a motion that the board vote on that number 4.
Okay, you make a motion to support item number 4 to
And keep it on
adopt the
keep it on
resolution.
the consent agenda.
We've already taken it off the consent agenda, so we'll just consider it now for a motion to pass.
Mayor's, with your approval, just to keep consistency in the way this is typically handled when it's removed from consent agenda, I'll read the resolution, then the board can take it up in that fashion.
Thank you.
Whereas pursuant to advertisement by the Public Works Department, a low bid was submitted by Stribling Equipment for one tandem vibratory roller in the amount of $45,420, and whereas funding for the purchase is budgeted and will come from the Streets Capital Outlay Fund, and whereas the city manager and staff recommend approval, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas, that the city manager is authorized and directed to enter into a contract with Stribling Equipment in the amount and for the purposes set forth above, with funding from the sources so indicated, passed and approved this 4th day of March 2019.
Move for adoption.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second, a motion by Director Harris, a second by Director Hollybush to approve and adopt this resolution. Is there any other discussion? If not, Heather, could you call the roll, please?
Hollibush,
Yes.
Odom,
Well, it was me. I was not paying attention.
No,
Yes.
just
Odom,
Oh, yeah.
Minor,
Yes.
Peavy,
Yes.
excuse me, Teeters,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes. Okay, the resolution passes. Okay, moving right along to our regular agenda items. Tonight, the first item on the agenda is to adopt an ordinance amending ordinance number 4, 2018, and approving personnel policy amendments as presented by Finance Director Tyronda Henderson. This ordinance also requires an emergency clause, and this clause will be enacted as a separate vote. So, how are you?
I'm doing well, and you? Good afternoon, Mayor Brown, Board of Directors, and City Manager Dr. Haskin. This ordinance proposes amendments to Section 4.02 of the Personnel Policy as recommended and approved by the Personnel Policy Committee. This amendment removes references to April 18, 1983, as it will simplify the policy and remove unnecessary language. This amendment also brings the policy into compliance with state statute, which will allow firefighters working 24-hour shifts to accumulate a maximum of 2,160 hours of sick leave. Section 4.02, sick leave, will now read, all regular full-time employees may accumulate a maximum of 90 days of sick leave. For firefighters working 24-hour shifts, 90 days is defined as 2,160 hours. For all other full-time employees, 90 days is defined as 720 hours. Sick leave accrual will cease for any employee with sick leave accumulation in excess of the 90-day maximum until such time as sick leave accumulation falls below the maximum. Sick leave accrual will continue for any employee with sick leave accumulation below the 90-day maximum until such time as sick leave accrual reaches the maximum. Are there any questions?
Any director have any questions for Ms. Henderson?
Yes, I do.
Yes, sir.
When was the last time an employee got paid? Do you know?
When was the last time employees?
Got paid?
That was Friday.
Friday.
Yes.
Okay. Did they occur in sick leave then, or?
Yes, sir. No changes have been made to sick leave accrual. Those changes won't be made until after the policy is adopted.
Okay. And from my understanding, this here was come from, if I'm not mistaken, that was a workshop about 2 weeks ago?
Correct.
Okay. And from my understanding, well, I could be wrong on this. I know I didn't attend the workshop. For somebody want to hop on my case about not attending the workshop, but I am going to say this, that last I noticed that this position was volunteer, so I think if it's volunteer, I can volunteer attend and not attend in workshop and in board meeting when I want to or don't want to. But back on to the point, from my understanding is this, here it is. There was a workshop. Now, the workshop was, that was something was going to be put on the agenda, and what was going to be put on the agenda, it wasn't like this, and from my understanding, that the workshop, that for the, it was a different procedure that was going to be put on the agenda, that it was on, and how was this different from this resolution, or this ordinance here?
What occurred during the workshop was when the original proposal from the Personnel Policy Committee was submitted through the city manager. At that time, it was determined that the sick leave accrual and the personnel policy were two different things. What they were allowing to be accrued was actually against personnel policy. And then there was a tweak in there with the actual number of hours that a group of firemen could accrue. But we were not really following personnel policy at that time, but there was also a state statute in place that mandates the number of hours that city employees, mainly police and fire, can accrue. And so in the workshop, the mistake that was made during the workshop, as I stated at the last board meeting, was I did not distribute any proposal for an ordinance to the board members prior to it. They did not see the personnel policy, the amendment that was presented, nor did they look at an ordinance that the city manager, the city attorney and I were working on, as far as what options we had to pursue, what to look into, to how to fix it. And the workshop simply should have been a working workshop to discuss what options we had as a board to move forward. And it was the consensus of the board in that workshop, it was very evident that night, is to, one, get our employees within the state law, mandated by the state law, but it was also evident at that meeting to allow these employees to keep these hours that they had accrued and not remove them. And that was the intent of the workshop, was mainly to do an education process so that we know what we were up against. And in the future, any of those workshops will be to look at the options that this board would have to consider for any potential ordinance. And all we ended up doing was basically tweaking the original policy for that the personnel policy submitted to fix it within the state statute requirement for that one group of firemen. But everything in a nutshell is every employee is allowed to accrue up to 90 days. And this ordinance stops that effective tonight. If this ordinance passes, that accrual will stop immediately for any employee of the city that has over that number of hours. And they will not be allowed to accrue until they drop below the state mandated 90 days.
Do you think this is going to cause more or sick leave or less?
No, sir, I don't. I mean, I've personally met with the departments, the department heads. I've discussed it with them. Overtime, I mean, sick leave has not been a problem for the city in the past. What really was a problem was overtime is an issue with the city that each department's assured me, and I know some other board members have discussed it with them. They've discussed it with the city manager that, we'll try not to let overtime affect someone being out, because that's where it does cost the city an enormous amount of money, is covering employees that are out sick when they're out to be out for an extended period of time. And everybody I've met with, I have no doubt that they will watch this going forward. But above all, tonight, the passing of this ordinance gets our city within compliance with state law.
That's correct.
And my last question, I guess concern was, this didn't have nothing to do, from my understanding, is that if someone tried to put something on the agenda and if they doesn't get approval by the department head, then you had to go to have a workshop, and then you had to get another board member second to put it on that workshop. So this didn't have nothing.
That didn't have anything to do with that. And basically, the procedure is in what I would classify as, the best way I could describe it, is what's known as a working workshop.
Okay.
So when there is a discrepancy between, or a difference of opinion as to what's being placed on the agenda and what some other board member's opinion is of that particular thing, a workshop can be called, which was the intent of this workshop, to discuss those options of that. if it is, for an example, if it was, and I'll be rash here and say, if it was a consensus of the board at that workshop to remove those hours, that was the intent, that every board member that was represented at that workshop decided that was the case, it would have required a second to initiate an ordinance to do that, because that was in direct conflict with what proposal was being presented by the Personnel Policy Committee. That's the only reason a second would have been required, is because there was an objection to the original proposal that was being proposed for the agenda.
Okay, with that being said, Mayor, I move that the ordinance be read in abbreviated form.
Okay, we have a motion and that the ordinance be read in its abbreviated form on its first reading. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a second. Heather, could you call the roll, please?
Hollowbush.
Yes.
Odo.
Yes.
Minor.
Yes.
Peavy.
Yes.
Teeters.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
An ordinance amending the City of Texarkana, Arkansas personnel policy, including without limitation ordinance number K570, as amended, declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
Mayor, I move that the rules be suspended and place the ordinance on the second reading.
Okay, we have a motion that the ordinance be placed in its abbreviated form on its second reading. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Heather, could you call the roll?
Hollowbush.
Yes.
Odo.
Yeah.
Minor.
Yes.
Peavy.
Yes.
Teeters.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
An ordinance amending the City of Texarkana, Arkansas personnel policy, including without limitation ordinance number K570, as amended, declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
And I move that the rules be further suspended and place the ordinance on the third and final reading.
Okay, we have a motion that the ordinance be placed on its final and third reading and the rules suspended and have it read in its abbreviated form. Do I have a second?
Second motion to that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to have it read in its third and final reading in its abbreviated form. Heather, could you call the roll?
Hollowbush.
Yes.
Odo.
Yes.
Minor.
Yes.
Peavy.
Yes.
Teeters.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
An ordinance amending the City of Texarkana, Arkansas personnel policy, including without limitation ordinance number K570, as amended, declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
Okay, we have an ordinance that's been read in its third and final reading. At this time, we'll entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance.
Motion to adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Is there anyone here in the audience that wishes to speak to this matter? Is there any board member for any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Heather, could you call the roll?
Hollowbush.
Yes.
Odo.
Yes.
Minor.
Yes.
Peavy.
Yes.
Teeters.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes. So the ordinance passes. This ordinance also requires an emergency clause. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve an emergency clause.
Motion to approve an emergency clause.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve an emergency clause. Is there any discussion? If not, is there anyone here in the audience that wishes to speak to this matter? Seeing and hearing none, Heather, could you call the roll, please?
Hollowbush.
Yes.
Odom.
Yes.
Minor.
Yes.
Peavy.
Yes.
Teeters.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes. So the ordinance passes and the emergency clause passes. Okay. Moving right along, our next item on the agenda is item number 6. It's to adopt an ordinance amending the zoning chapter for the City of Texarkana, Arkansas Code of Ordinance regarding wrecker services. It's my understanding in talking with the planning department, and I've also, I see the planning commission, one of the planning commissioners, Booch Thomas here, that basically this ordinance was, a lot of research was put in with the planning commission and pertaining to this, and it pertains to a wrecker service being put into a C3 zone, and the planning commission basically worked out what you have before you now, and that's requiring what word am I looking for, Mary? Conditional use permit for a wrecker service to be placed in C3, and I've talked with both of them. This is something that would be favorable for C3 to require this. It also cleaned up some language, and I'll let, if you don't mind, Mary come forward, and then if Boots would like to say something briefly about this so that we can try to get this taken care of tonight. But this will clean up some of the other language in there as it pertains to wrecker services and salvage yards and that to get this cleaned up for C3.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Directors. I'm here to represent the Planning Commission, the Board's Technical Commission recommendation regarding request to change the current ordinance established by Ordinance K 286 in 1988 regarding zoning land use for wrecking service. As you know, many of our regulations have become outdated or proven to need adaptation to changing times, and when a recent land transaction involved plans for a wrecker service in a commercial zone, staff brought the land usage to the attention of the Planning Commission, and continuing every month from the November 13th regular meeting of the Planning Commission through February 12th, the Planning Commission conducted workshops, and following the fourth workshop, conducted a public hearing that resulted in the recommendation for the ordinance you have before you this evening, agreed upon by a unanimous roll call vote. The revisions regarding the wrecker service consist of 1, restricting use in the C3 open display commercial zoning to a conditional use permit, where the Planning Commission will have oversight on a case-by-case basis in this commercial district. 2, adding wrecking service land use to all industrial zones that will open up other options for locations to be considered. 3, distinguishing a standalone wrecker service from an accessory use to other businesses, such as a car lot or pawn shop where they might repo a vehicle. And 4, to remove a 30-day restriction for storage currently in the ordinances. The Commission felt the 30-day restriction is not realistic for current insurance reviews. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and as the Mayor mentioned, I'd like to introduce longtime Commissioner Boots Thomas, who'll be happy to share his expertise on the process that brings this matter to you this evening as well.
Boots, you have anything you'd like to add, or?
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, my name is Boots Thomas, and long-serving means since '96, so that's been a while. As far as expertise, Miss Mary honors me. Basically, what we've done is some housekeeping, looking at our ordinances and bringing everything up to date. Business changes. As time goes along, they invent new ways to do things, and it's important that we have ability to address those issues as they arise. The difference, and the question that we were asked a lot, is what is the difference between a wrecker service and a wrecking yard? Well, a wrecker service picks up a car from an accident or a tow, brings it to a storage yard where it's kept until the insurance makes their decision. A wrecking yard is a place where dead cars go to be parted out and pieced up and crushed down and carried to Tri-State. So wrecking yards should be in industrial zones only. Our old ordinances kind of was a little gray area, and our wrecker service could turn into a wrecking yard without oversight. So C3 is our open display commercial zone. We find our restaurants and sales lots and some of our priority uses for commercial business in C3s, and sometimes they are adjacent to residential neighborhoods. So you certainly don't want a wrecking yard there. And giving us the right to have a case-by-case study of the wrecking yard permits, and we can place restrictions. We can put, we can turn it down. We can say, no, it's not appropriate for that location, and we can also add requirements as we see them, and a conditional use permit dies with the use. If the wrecker service closes, the conditional use permit goes away. Gives you more control over your land uses, and hopefully in going forward it will make the city a cleaner place to do business, and you won't have these old legacy things that are on the neighborhood that you wish wasn't there. So that's our purpose for doing that.
Thanks so much. Does anybody have any questions of Commissioner Thomas?
Why do they even are required to come to you to get an occupation license or something, or
Well, before, I
How do
think,
they even show
Mayor,
up?
the wrecking services, or wrecker service,
Right.
was a
That's
use
right.
by right in a C3 zone. And we're amending that to make it a conditional use in a C3 zone. They're all a use, wrecker services are a use by right in industrial zones and warehouse zones where wrecking yards are also a use by right. And most wrecking yards will also have a wrecker truck, but they're not a wrecker service in the same way.
And if you would, Ms. Beck, if I would like to explain to you just one last point, and that is, having this conditional use permit and this ordinance approved, if the planning commission denies the conditional use permit for that, there is an appeal process, and it would come before this board for the board to either vote yay or nay on that appeals process. So if the commission abides by this ordinance and turns someone down, as Commissioner Thomas has explained tonight, there is an appeal process that this board would still have to vote potentially on either allowing or not allowing that. And personally, from my position, would be that would not be something I would support, since we're asking the planning commission, they've done all this work to make this proposal to us that's in the best interest of the city. But there could be an instance where an appeal process would be brought to this board, and this board would have to vote to either support the conditional use permit decision or not.
Absolutely, and the Planning Commission, as always, as the board does, we want to promote businesses, we want to support businesses, and we want to make sure everyone's rights have an opportunity to the full extent of the law. We're not trying to hamper anything that benefits the city, but we do want to protect other businesses that may already even be in place with something like this.
I understand.
Absolutely.
Okay. Does any board member have any questions of Ms. Beck or Commissioner Thomas?
Very well explained. Yep.
No, thank you all very much. Thanks for coming. So at this time, we have the adoption of an ordinance on the agenda amending this zoning chapter in the Texas County, Arkansas. At this time, I would entertain a motion for adoption.
I make a motion that we adopt it.
Okay. We have a motion to adopt the ordinance. Do I hear a second?
Mayor, given it's an ordinance that will require 3 times reading,
Right.
it's the pleasure of the board to
Not
hear
to adopt, I'm sorry.
in its entirety
To
or
read.
Motion
abbreviated.
to read its abbreviated form, please.
Second.
Let's back up. We're going to do it. We're going to, first of all right, I got ahead of myself. This would be an ordinance, so this, as the city attorney pointed out, does require 3 readings. They can be read tonight if the board so desires. There is not an emergency clause attached to this particular ordinance, but it would have to be read 3 times. So at this time, I would entertain a motion for the ordinance to be read on its first reading.
I make a motion that we have the city attorney to read it
In its abbreviated form.
abbreviated form.
So we have a motion for the ordinance to be read in its first reading in its abbreviated form. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Heather, could you call the roll, please?
Colabish,
Yes.
Odom,
Yes.
Minor,
Yes.
Peavy,
Yes.
Teeters,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
An ordinance to amend ordinance number K-286 is amended and codified at Article 28 of the City of Texarkana, County, Arkansas Code of Ordinances to provide for certain provisions relating to automobile record services and for other purposes.
Okay. Ordinance has been read in its first reading. Do I hear a motion to have this ordinance read on its second reading tonight in its
Motion.
abbreviated form? We have a
Motion to read the ordinance in abbreviated form for the second reading, please.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to have the ordinance read its second time tonight. It's in abbreviated form. Heather, could you call the roll?
Colabish,
Yes.
Odom,
Yes.
Minor,
Yes.
Peavy,
Yes.
Teeters,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
An ordinance to amend ordinance number K-286 is amended and codified at Article 28 of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas Code of Ordinances to provide for certain provisions relating to automobile record services and for other purposes.
Okay, the motion has been read and the ordinance has been read in its second reading. Do I hear a motion to have it read on its third and final reading?
So moved in abbreviated form.
Well, I was going to ask, Was there some type of notice given publicly when they first did this with the planning commission?
Yes, there was a public hearing notice that was sent out, and there was actually 4 meetings held by the planning commission that pertained to this one ordinance.
Motion to have it read in its abbreviated form in the third reading.
Second. We have a motion, we have a second by Director Peavy to have it read on its abbreviated form, its third and final reading. Heather, could you call the roll?
Hollowbush,
Yes.
Odom,
Yes.
Minor.
Yes.
Peavy.
Yes.
Teeters.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
An ordinance to amend ordinance number K-286 is amended and codified at Article 28 of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas Code of Ordinances to provide for certain provisions relating to automobile record services and for other purposes.
Okay, the motion has been read in its third and final reading. This time, do I have a motion to adopt the ordinance?
I make a motion that we adopt that ordinance.
Okay. Do I have a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Is there anyone here in the audience that wishes to speak to pertaining to this ordinance? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Heather, could you call the roll?
Hollowbush,
Yes.
Odom,
Yes.
Minor.
Yes.
Peavy.
Yes.
Teeters.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes. Okay, so the ordinance passes. That's it, we don't have to do an emergency clause, wasn't there? So the ordinance passes. Booth, thank you again for your time and the planning commission's effort in trying to keep our ordinances up to date.